You're watching Leafs Morning Take with host Nick Alberga and former NHLer Jay Rosehill. The show starts now.
Oh yes, feeling good on a Wednesday after a come-from-behind victory at TD Garden in Boston. It's Nick Alberga, Jay Rosehill, the Wednesday edition of Leafs Morning Take presented by Bet365. How we feeling, Rosie?
Yeah, better than I thought we were going to be after that start. I was just like, oh boy, I'll forget about this one. But lo and behold, they found a little something. Man, it's sweet to have Boston's number this year compared to what it's been the last 18.
The array of emotions watching that hockey game, but the role reversal as well, where it's like the last 10 years, it's been Boston who has done that a lot to Toronto, but this time it was the Leafs doing that to Boston, not the first time this season. Dare I say, they're ridding themselves of this Boston curse a bit here, Rosie.
Ooh, I would wait a little while longer before we say something like that. I would love just to bury them in the playoffs or something. Don't want to get ahead of myself, but it's nice to look around the division and the conference and say, we are firmly one of the big dogs. We're not one of the sniffers. We are right there. And constantly we are taking it to those teams, the Tampas and the Bostons, who have had our number in different ways in the past, especially Boston. But yeah, there's a prime example of we can spot you three and we're still not out of it. It's nice. And it reminds me that the time is now, if you know what I'm saying.
I like that. John Cena performing at Elimination Chamber on Saturday as well. You knew that. The tour for Cena continues this year. That's
right. That's exactly what I was thinking.
Great tie-in, Rosie. Opening an account with Bet365 today, betting a huge range of markets, whatever the moment. It's never ordinary at Bet365. Use code NATION, all in uppercase today. That's NATION, NATION. Our Super Chat charity partner this season is Sick Kids. Want to make sure that your question or chat gets on the show. Hit us up with a Super Chat. Proceeds from our Super Chat will go to Sick Kids, ranked the #1 research-intensive children's hospital in Canada and third in the world. But it really is amazing. And you talked about this mere seconds before going to air. The Atlantic Division, how every team just continues to win here. It happened again last night.
Like, what the hell? We're looking at it, and it's, 4 straight coming out of the Four Nations face-off, and you see other teams kind of struggling. The Oilers, for example, and we're just Is that 3 or 4 straight now?
Leafs?
Maybe. Yeah.
2 in a row. Or no, 3 in a row. 3 in a row.
Yeah, nonetheless, look dominant, look great. And you look at the standings, it's like 1 point, but they have a game in hand. And they're just nipping at our heels, those Lightning, Panthers. If they didn't have as good of a start after the Four Nations face-off, we could easily be looking at third place. And I mean, Lightning's got a game in hand on us. It's not ideal. It is tight, but I think, this isn't even new. This has been happening all season long. And I just think the consistency that the Leafs are playing at has continued to keep them in that, top spot. And I hope that continues. But yeah, it's when you look at the standings as well as they've been doing, and they have the Bruins number, and I think they're one of the best teams in the East. You look at the standings, and you're like, Jesus, these other guys won't really go away. But that's those 2 Florida teams for you, I guess.
Yeah, Tampa's the one that impresses me because they did have that blip like a month ago when a lot of people were starting to write them off, and then they found that second win. And then to even play a desperate Edmonton team last night, Draisaitl scores the opening goal, and then 4 unanswered goals from Tampa. Like, they just have the heart of a champion, heart of a lion. And I'm very curious to see what Tampa does between now and the trade deadline as well.
I know there's a few outfits. Boston's in there too. What are some of these outfits going to do where they're used to kind of being a charge, making a charge, feeling like they kind of always have a chance? They're in kind of a different spot, but I know it's a week away. It's going to be interesting. Yeah, there's a lot of teams where it'll be fun to see what happens. A lot of talk about Carolina, what they're going to do with their big boy they just acquired, if they're going to be left in a nightmare scenario or not. But yeah, the trade deadline is going to be fun this year. As it starts to approach, you start to dig in a little bit to different teams, and there are some question marks and some interesting things. I think there'll be some eyebrows raised this year.
What'd you make of Luke Schen's commentary last night after the Nashville game? And I tell you, that's Stamkos. We just talked about Tampa, but that team can't score goals, and he is so damn cold right now, man.
I know it's a rough one. It's such a stark difference from the summertime when they went out and acquired the players they did. Everyone was like, well, the Preds are running for the cup. And I mean, they can't win a goddamn game. They can't score a goal. It just shows you what chemistry is, what, fitting players together that complement each other is all about. Because as nice as the names look on paper, their skill sets and their abilities and their positioning and their strengths don't really complement each other. You don't have the right mix of guys down there, and it's none too obvious as it is right now when they just continue to falter. What did Chenner say though?
Love the chem talk, firstly, but he went on to say, I don't think I've ever been part of a group like this that literally can't score a
Oh, yeah.
goal. I think Lucas has some amnesia because he's been on the Leafs in the Stanley Cup playoffs, so
Right.
he's lived it.
Where goals are hard to come by. You're trying to win 1-0. I don't know, man. Yeah, I know.
Free Luke Shen.
I know. We need a right-hand D-man as much as ever now with Tanev going down scary. And I mean, his brother, I believe, is the front runner. I think he's the best fit for a bottom six center. And I mean, it seems weird calling Braden a bottom six guy because he's such a good player with experience, a captain of his team, very skilled, so much heart and grit and experience winning a cup. But that's where he'd slot on the Leafs. And I mean, that's exactly what you want is guys in roles that are overqualified for them, because when you match them up against other teams, you're going to get the best matchup. And having a guy like Braden Shen at 3C, to me is very appealing.
What did you think? I know the game asking or sort of stating Marner ignored Austin. I know you brought that up before we went to air here, but that was kind of funny when he scores the OT winner, just fly by, rate the Stolars.
I know. I can't help but think that with all the spotlight and accolades and success that Mitch Marner has had in the last week or so, that Austin is kind of left in the dust with that. He can't seem to score. You saw him rattle 3 posts yesterday. He can't seem to just jump on one of those pucks and bury it like he was last year. Loses the Four Nations Cup. Everyone's kind of talking he hasn't scored, on a goalie since whatever it's been, and it's probably bugging him. Sends Mitchie on the breakaway there and goes to Selly with his buddy, and he blows his doors off to go point at Stoley or whatever the hell he was doing. But yeah, I don't know. You look at how much success Mitch is having and how that affects the team. Can you imagine all three of these guys imagine Willie's just at his best, Mitch is playing like he is right now, and Austin's at his best, all at the same time, all in the playoffs, with Stoley and net, with the D being strong and healthy, and some of the additions we could potentially make at the trade deadline. I'm just going, oh my God, like it's just a matter of matching it all up at the same time. And that's going to happen. Austin's got to figure it out and kind of get going. I'm not dogging on him, but we know he's got a lot better.
Presented by Fountain Tire. Join us for Flight Night on Saturday, March 8th at Greta Bar YYZ's. We host a watch party for the Toronto-Colorado game. As part of Flight Night, one lucky winner and a guest of their choice will win a spot in the first ever TLN Nation vacation happening in Nashville, March 20th to 23rd. To be eligible, all you need to do is purchase a $10 ticket for this event at nationgear.ca. That's nationgear.ca, and you will automatically be entered in the raffle draw. I know some of you have been asking in the chat, can you buy a ticket and not be there? No, you have to be in attendance for the event. So it's nationgear.ca. On top of that, you can buy additional raffle tickets for the draw for $20 a pop in support of One Broken Biker. We still have a few spots, by the way, to fill on this trip. We're offering two packages, one with flights, $24.50 plus tax, one without, $12.99 plus tax. Please note, hotel rooms are double occupancy. For more information on how to book, again, nationgear.ca, or you could check out the link in our show bio. Life's too short for ordinary vacations.
I got to fix for that problem, Nick. I got to fix for that problem. If you want to get your name in, but you can't show up, easy. Buy a ticket. Send a friend. Hey, do you want a free night at this Greta bar? You want to have some fun? Just so you know, you're involved in a raffle and my name's on it. In so facto, you don't show up because you can't, but you still get your name in. You still win the trip.
You just complicated things beyond
Solve the
belief, because
problem.
I think Zach and I have to run the door at this event. We got to figure out more on this whole thing, but it just, and then
Even
there's the
easier
Toronto.
than Zach and Nick are running the door.
Well, I
Done.
think Zach's got a game to do that night too with the Leafs Nation after. There's a lot of moving parts to this thing, but you did make things way more complicated. So appreciate
I
that.
think I
But
helped out a lot of people.
everybody's looking for that loophole, man. It's hilarious to me. Just show up to the event. You have a chance to win a trip to Nashville. Just do that. Anyways, we're going trade deadline heavy over the next week. Brian Burke's stopping by tomorrow. Today, Dave Pagnotta, the fourth period NHL insider with NHL Network Radio. And we're going to do a Maple Leafs trade primer in about 15, 20 minutes here.
Ooh, I know, man. With Tanev going down last night, I'm even more wide-eyed on a right-hand defenseman because, as you mentioned in the rundown, maybe I'm jumping the gun here, which I know you don't like, but we only have Timmins and who's our other?
Benoit. Or no, Timmins and Myers, sorry.
Timmins and Myers are our two lowest defensemen on the depth chart. If you ask some people, that's not good. Those right-handed defensemen are valuable and they're rare, and you need a couple of them. And to see Tanev not in the lineup, we're going to see firsthand here. I imagine Tanev's going to miss some time. That you need one of those guys, and I think that with all the talk from 3C, I don't know how much we can get done at this deadline, but I think the focus is probably going to shift firmly to a right-handed centerman here now with the loss of Tanev. We're going to see how valuable they are.
Yeah, I'm curious to know what the direction, if it will be impacted, I should say, by the Tanev injury, which we'll get to in mere seconds. At the Leafs Nation 401 here on YouTube, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Leafs Morning Take, wherever you find your podcast, make sure to leave us a 5-star review. And don't forget to visit theleafsnation.com. Think you know hockey? Play Sobeys My NHL Picks weekly for the chance to win big prizes like a trip for 4 to this year's Stanley Cup Final. A new slate of games opens every Thursday from now until the end of the regular season. So download the Sobeys app and start playing today for your chance to win. First week in the books, I went 3 for 5 with my picks, as you'll see on your screen in mere seconds here. But the two I got wrong, I was like really disappointed about because I missed Edmonton over the weekend. And last night I had Carolina over the Montreal Canadiens, and both did not hit, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's not easy picking winners. You think it is, but when you're on the gun sitting in the seat, it's a little bit different. But that's a fun thing to do. Jump on that. I've done things like that in the past. And get your kids involved. Do what you want to do, but it's fun trying to pick those winners, and you got good reason to now.
Pretty simple. Just go to the Sobeys app and pick your winners. The new week comes out tomorrow. So tomorrow, on tomorrow's show, maybe you'll see the video of my picks for the upcoming week. So that's something to look forward for the Thursday edition of Leafs Morning Take. But let's recap this Leafs-Bruins game. So much happened in such a short period of time in this hockey game. But the fact that the Leafs walk out somehow, some way, Rosie, with a 5-4 OT victory, incredible. Mitch Marner wins it.
I know. I mean, they did not start hot, and I don't really think, I didn't blame them. It's not like they were garbage or looked like they weren't interested or didn't have a heartbeat. But I mean, that stretch pass to Pasternak, goes over one guy. I know, it's like, okay, he buries it. That's fine. And a couple of the other plays, and one's bouncing off McCabe's head and goes in. Couple of weird bounces. I thought Stoli was phenomenal again. That guy is everywhere, man, with his second efforts where he gets across and there's so much body there that these guys that usually have everything to shoot at all of a sudden have a whole bunch of stolars in their way. Loved that as much as they were put in a tough spot, but the battle back and the grind and the not giving up and just being a solid team, I didn't think that just shows depth. We got Bobby Robertson jumping in there again. He's starting to pop off with that third line that we had a lot of success with previous in the season. Looks like it could, hopefully potentially be something here. We'll see if the trade deadline splits that up or not, but pretty awesome to come back when you look like you're literally down and out 3-Cobb against the Boston Bruins when you're the Toronto Maple Leafs. I mean, you might as well pack your shit, but they didn't, and come out with 2 points is pretty incredible.
I love the way they came out in the third period in waves and really took it and brought it to Boston. Swayman's one of the better goaltenders on the planet. They made things difficult for him. And when you have 4 lines buzzing the way the Maple Leafs had in the second half of that game, you're going to be tough to beat. Like, even the fact that it's your boy Pontus Holmberg who ties the game after a very, very long shift. Like it wasn't looking good because the big boys were on for an extended period of time with the goalie pulled. And then I don't know if it was a called shot by Craig Berube in the bench, but to get Holmberg on there to hammer it home and to tie the game, that's just big stuff. When you can get contributions from guys who are not the obvious players, that's so big for me.
I know. And you mentioned coming like waves, like that's the whole point of having that depth. And if you think back to the playoffs where you're looking to, like, say it is a third period and say you are down a goal and it is the playoffs, you just got to come wave, 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 change, change, go, go, offensive zone, momentum, momentum, and take it to him. And eventually that will crack and you'll get your goal and you'll tie the game or you'll pull ahead. And when you don't have that, it's just like spinning your wheels, nothing's happening. Okay, how much can you play Austin Matthews? How much can you get so and so? Do you put Austin and Mitch together? Do you break them up? And you're spinning your wheels, pulling your hair out, trying to figure out how you make something happen in a game like that. But when you have that depth, you can roll them a little more and it's more organic. And that's an example right there. A third period, you kind of put the hammer down, roll your lines, getting a little bit of contributions from every line and all your depth pieces as well. And you never know. It's going to be a depth guy that scores. You see Robertson, Bury. And if you don't have that, you're kind of left holding the bag more often than not. But again, that's an example of that depth that we're looking for that I think we have more of this year. We've been calling on the depth to step up a little bit. We'll see if they shore it up a little bit with the trade deadline as well. But that's an example of why they're talking about that so important to have for teams that are going to go on a run. You got to be able to come in waves like that.
We got a request in the chat yesterday for you to do the hello Pontus. So can you do it?
We were down a goal, and what happened? Hello, Pontus. I'm here now, Pontus. Good job, Pontus. It's good to see him, man. I have picked him for a goal too, so it's nice to see this kid. Our depth, man, that line, Domi Pontus, Bobby Bobertson, when they're buzzing, they look so good. Remember them when they're just popped off, and it was like, oh god. I think they got broken up there a little bit, but they're back again, and like Robertson's burning on his chances. Pontus is jumping in on there. Domi's making passes and dishing and having some vision again. Like, God, I would like to see that guy score a goal. But it's, again, I get as excited to see a line like that have success than I do to see like Austin or Mitch pop off. It's like, yeah, I know you're good. I know you're disgusting. That's what you do. I'm not surprised. But when you see depth start to really churn and get some chemistry going, it really fires me up because I'm like, that is what's missing in the playoffs, and that's what you absolutely need in the playoffs.
4 goals in the last 3 games, and I think it's so interesting that these two guys, specifically in Holmberg and Robertson, have come out this way with the trade deadline a week away. I just wonder how this impacts Toronto's deadline because Calle Yarncroke's coming back. But credit to these guys. It's now, can you bottle this up and play this way for an extended period of time? Are you a believer in the new look bottom 6 the last couple games?
Do you believe? So what are you leaning to? They are now more valuable trade pieces, or they're more likely to put their faith in them where they are?
No, I'm leaning towards, is it real or is it fake?
Um, it was real last night. Is it real or is it fake? That's what I'm throwing it back to you. So
Okay.
they're popping off right before the deadline. Do you think that lends itself to them being more valuable trade pieces, or do you think the Leafs are going, holy shit, maybe we don't need to adjust as much as we thought with our depth?
Well, I'm just trying to wonder that. Like,
Yeah, me
can
too.
these guys do anything to play themselves on this team for the duration of the season into the playoffs? I still say no. I
Yeah.
think you have to think long term. It's a nice stretch, but consistency has been the big word around these guys for the early on of their NHL careers. Can they bottle it up and be these guys for an extended period of time? And for me, the jury is still out on that.
Yeah, and I'm not going to flip the switch saying, okay, no, stop the presses. We don't need to make any changes to our depth because Pontus has scored the last couple of games.
Yeah.
I also don't agree with that. I like the fact that it could go either way. Like, depending on what's going on with Tree Living, when it's down the stretch and the phones are ringing off the hook and you're working it and it's crunch time and you've got to pull the trigger and finalize a deal with this one thing or that other thing, maybe in order to get something over the hump, it is the play of Nick Robertson lately, or, take your pick of guys, but it certainly doesn't hurt that your players are playing better. And then if something doesn't get over the hump, maybe it's like, well, you know what? We've seen what so-and-so's best is. We think he could contribute with this guy and have chemistry with that or whatever. It's just there's nothing bad or negative about guys starting to play better. And like I said, if it comes down to crunch time, maybe just the teams watching these guys having chem and having success lately is enough to say, all right, let's do this deal.
Did you see how much your boy Alex Stees played last night?
Not a lot, eh?
5 minutes and 41 seconds, Rosie.
It's disappointing. Disappointing.
This is your cup winner yesterday.
My cup winner.
Calder.
I think he's a player that needs more minutes than that. Obviously, though, you're trying to get back in the game. Are you rolling your fourth line like crazy? It depends what's going on in the game. You're down 3 in TD Garden. Your fourth line is going to get passed over more often than not. That's a byproduct of that. Is that a knock on Steves? I don't think so. Should he go up and take someone else's job, especially when the third line is buzzing like that? No, I think he's a victim of circumstance.
Fair enough. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button at the Leafs Nation 401 where you can do so. I want to give some love for Morgan Rielly, one of his better offensive efforts. And now you look at the stats, and he's got 8 points in the last 7 games, but a 4-point effort last night for Morgan Rielly, a game high 27-39 as well.
Wow, that's a story that gets buried. Hey,
Yeah.
good for him. That's what we need. A $7.5 million player needs to be doing things like that. Awesome to see. He has struggled mightily this year at times. We have been vocal about it. We actually haven't been vocal. It flew under the radar for a long time. And finally, in the last, within the new year, we've been like, hey, what the hell is Morgan Rielly doing? Because it's not a whole heck of a lot. And he's eating up cap space and contributing nothing and getting scored on all the time. But the only reason we kind of let it go for so long is we know what his potential is, what kind of player he is, what his pedigree is. And that's probably why he got the benefit of the doubt. And lo and behold, here he is, hopefully turning a corner and putting up some points. I mean, as a defenseman in the NHL, those points are not easy to come by. It is a tough league. Everybody is very, very good. So that's a great sign for him. And I hope that he's turning a corner and blossoming confidence-wise, because peaking right about now is nice to see when you're thinking about a playoff run.
It's really interesting because you watch that game and you see Tanev go down the way he did so early on, where somebody needed to step up, and Jake McCabe had himself a really tough game, between the puck off the face and the turnover to the Pasternak goal in the third period. But that, again, that's why you pay a Morgan Rielly that type of money to be like sort of the de facto number one guy. And I just thought he was really good for a guy who has struggled with confidence all season long. I think the confidence is slowly coming back to his game, and maybe in the second half here, specifically the last 30 plus games or so, really finds a groove into the Stanley Cup playoffs. And again, maybe we forget about the regular season.
Oh man, the best way to erase from everyone's memory an average to poor regular season is to light it up in the playoffs. And he's been good in the playoffs before. That's exactly what he could do this year. No one would literally even remember what was even going on at some of his lowest points this season. Those performances at the right time erase a lot of wounds. So like I said before, I hope he's trending that way and turning a corner, and hope he's primed up and ready to do exactly that.
Lisa Grinton writes in, Rielly has played well for a month now. Snake Pilskin writes in, Rosie is too funny. I disagree with that. But everybody loves your Hello Pontus, man. That's a big thing. We need shirts.
I have a friend I played with. It was a while ago, Hampus Lindholm, man. And every morning, me and my other buddy, hello, Hampus. And he was just such a quiet little kid. He was like 20 years old. It was pretty funny. And I cannot say Pontus without thinking that.
Fair enough. The injuries, 2 big ones last night. If you had noticed watching OT, no Willie Nylander. I thought about him getting benched, but it wasn't that. We saw his glove off. Berube after the game saying something was bothering him. But the bigger one clearly is Chris Tanev. We just talked about the minutes being added to the plate of McCabe and Morgan Rielly, but he got hurt so early. Like we joked about in our group chat, we had barely time to sit down. Pasternak makes it 1-0. Tanev gets hurt and does not play again, does not play another shift in that game. And, of course, he was seen leaving TD Garden with his right arm in a sling. Not good, Rosie. Not good.
Not good at all. And we have given Tanev his flowers here and there, probably not as much as he's deserved. That's just the nature of the beast when you are a shutdown, stay-at-home, puck-moving, do the little things type of defenseman. But if he's out for any significant time, be prepared to really realize how valuable he is to this Toronto Maple Leafs back end, man. He does so many little things. He moves the puck in such ways that he alleviates a lot of pressure from some of his peers back there. And if he's gone, those guys are going to have to step up. And if they're anything but playing out of their asses, you're going to notice big time that he's not there anymore. I know McCabe had a rough one last night. I'm not worried about that in any way. I mean, he's pinched against the boards. He's trying to go behind the net and it kind of whiffs off his heel. Okay, Pasternak steps on it. What are you going to do? That's just shit that happens. The other one, you're doing everything right. The puck bounces off your face and ends up in the back of the net. Not even going to think twice about that one. But yeah, to see Tanev lose or to leave, he gets squished against the boards. I initially thought maybe like some ribs or something because it's not really, his shoulders are kind of free and he kind of crunches against his torso midsection. Instant reaction. Something went, something tweaked, something. I think it's a shoulder, especially when you hear he's in a sling. Your AC joint is up here, your clavicle's over here, part of your collarbone. When you get squished like that, something goes wrong, the joint goes wrong. You can do a bunch of damage to some ligaments and whatnot. You can pop a joint, you can separate your shoulder. God, I hope it's not a separated shoulder. I hope it's some clavicle discomfort or some bullshit where you just got to ice it up, stay off of it for a week or two, and you're all back to normal. But he's not 20 years old. He's not going to heal in 3 days. I do think it's something that he's going to miss time for. And like I started off with, I think you're really going to see the benefit of Chris Tanev when you see him removed from the lineup.
Well, that's exactly it. He's missed one game prior to this one, and they lost that one. I believe it was that game against Winnipeg prior to the Christmas break. But I was just going to add, like, Chris Tanev is such a warrior. He leaves and goes down the tunnel once a game. The one time he doesn't come back, I'm scared shitless because I know it's something serious. And I think luckily the Leafs are at a point in the schedule and they're in first place in the Atlantic Division where they can buy some time. But this is a big time loss. Like, we have given him his credit on this show. He is such an important piece to this roster. And you take Tanev out of the lineup, it's a way different team. I mean, we saw it last night, how different they looked defensively without Tanev and then moving McCabe to the other side. Like, it was just a clusterfuck. But all I can hope is that he just doesn't miss too much time and he's not impacted for game one of the playoffs.
Yeah, a guy on the back end, the right piece, it can make a world of difference. You can really shore up some deficiencies and make yourself have a decor it's much deeper with one guy. That's the thing about D. You got 6 of them back there. You can double shift one to make it, you're crunching half the minutes out there at certain points in the game. That is Tanev, and you take him out. All of a sudden, other guys that just aren't Chris Tanev are filling in and eating those minutes, and you're going to see the mistakes that they make. You're going to see the decisions that they make that aren't Chris Tanev-esque, and that's going to be noticeable. Timing-wise, you're going to get a week without him. I'm like you said, he's a tough guy. He knows what's going on. He was clearly injured instantly. It's one of those things where you get, that went, and you know it. He's going to miss time. And timing wise, you're going to get a week before the deadline to see what it's like without him. But I think the need for a right-handed defenseman, I mean, if you lose Tanev and you don't replace him with someone that can maybe fill that role, and if he gets healthy and comes back and you have 2 guys, then all the better. I mean, that's what we were talking about anyways. But let's say he comes back and in game 1 of the playoffs, he goes down again and re-aggravates something. That's your season. Like, go back to the summer, to training camp, to battling before Christmas, to, the break for the 4 Nations, to coming down it's all done. It's all for nothing if you have a weak decor that just can't, that has too many holes. In a 7-game series, you will get exposed. You will lose your season. That'll be it. So for that reason, I think that Tree is going to be not shifting focus, but spending more time on that right-hand defenseman issue. As, like I said, we're going to miss Chris Tanev.
We're going to talk a bit more about that a bit later on after the Pagnotta interview about some players they could target on the trade market. But at the very least, I think it just reinforces the need to pick up at least one depth defenseman, right? And that was the case prior to the injury, but now Tanev goes down. It just shows you how quickly things can crumble. Like in the playoffs, how heavy, how hard he plays. This guy takes shot off the face like McCabe. It goes up and down this roster. It just shows you how quickly a mindset can change. But this is a big time loss. Like, you'll laugh, but I think losing Tanev will hurt this team greater than losing like a star player just because of his importance on the back end?
Yeah, they're unsung, man. They're as important as they get. You will not find, I don't know how far you even want to go back, a team that wins a Stanley Cup without a defenseman like a Chris Tanev, a guy that plays that role, that does it. Think about all the great teams. They've all got those D-men that stand out. To a team, every one of them has it. And yeah, there's the stars that get the big overtime winners and whatnot, and that's what you think of immediately. But you delete some of those stud D-men that do that job off those teams, and they very likely don't have the success that they do. Again, we'll wait. I imagine there'll be some kind of an announcement. I imagine it'll be vague and shitty and annoying coming from the Maple Leafs on an injured player. But I am just waiting and expected to miss. I don't even know how they're going to word it, but I think we'll probably just start off with 2 weeks and see what happens with that, unless it's a completely grade 3 separated shoulder and you're 0 for 6.
Knowing the Leafs, they'll just say day to day for the next 6 weeks.
Yeah, I know. Day to day until you find out he's in bloody Germany getting looked at by the so-and-so specialist of the world. We'll see, man. I don't like it, and do not be shocked if it is very noticeable with him out of the lineup down the stretch here.
Mario Kart writes in, Rosie, you pigeon. Say it now.
Oh.
You're a Marner fan.
Ha! I sure like it when he's playing like this. I'll tell you that. I'm not a fan. He rubs me the wrong way. Always has. I don't love some of the things he does out there, especially in crunch time. But he's starting to show he can show up in a big game. He can play in a heavy game. He can play against the best. He can show up when it matters. And if those are attributes that Mitch Marner is going to start adopting, I am all on board.
I love this chat. Like, we got this Danger Dan Q17 guy asking us how we know. He's asking us about being U.S. American citizens. Meryl Kite writes in, I want to hear him say, stand on it, pigeon. He's calling you a pigeon. He wants you to stand on it.
Not the first time. I'm not standing on shit. Mitch Marner's got to do a little more than score a couple 3-on-3 goals before I start going to town on him.
What a league. What a chat. At the Leafs Nation 401, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. As the official sub of the Toronto Maple Leafs, check out Firehouse Subs for a limited edition souvenir cup that is perfect for game day celebrations. Available in select restaurants across Ontario. Fans can collect this team-inspired souvenir cup with the purchase of any sub combo while supplies last. Be sure to check out the Brisket Hat Trick. It's a Canada-exclusive menu item. This hot and hearty sub is piled high with smoked turkey breasts, Virginia honey ham, and beef brisket. It is topped off with a sweet and tangy slaw, barbecue sauce, and mayo, and served on a toasted sub roll. Head to your local Firehouse Subs to grab your limited edition Toronto Maple Leafs souvenir cup today. As you bring in from the fourth period NHL Network and NHL Network Radio, it is our buddy Dave Pagnotta. DP, what's going on, buddy? How are you?
Good, boys. How are we?
We're good. We're just recapping this game, but obviously the sidebar story for us is the loss of Chris Tanev. Do you think that impacts how Toronto navigates the deadline here?
Well, yeah, it will if it's a significant injury. If he's out long term, then it's going to be a bit of an issue, obviously for Treliving and the Leafs, and they're going to have to kind of readjust a little bit. I guess what is it? We're getting word later today, I guess officially, as to the status of Chris and if it's going to be long term, how serious it is, and then they got to you kind of go from there. But better to happen now, 9 days before the deadline, than a day before or 2 days before, when you have to pivot and some options may not be available. You have to kind of readjust. Maybe you've already made a move, so it's wait and see mode. But you got to be, you got to do your due diligence, all that stuff, and make sure that you've got options available to you if Tanev is out for an extended period of time.
And obviously, everyone kind of knows they're looking at a depth center and a right-handed defenseman, and almost like more emphasis has been put on that centerman for quite some time. Do you think that squarely just makes him start to, shift almost all of his attention for the time being on that right-handed D-man, with Tanev being down, whether he's back in X amount of time or not? That was already a need. Is that the number one priority now for Tree?
Only if Tanev is out long term. I still think they'd like to bring in somebody capable of playing the 2C, or at the very least a second line. Like I've still heard that while they would like to get somebody at the dot, they're still looking at options on the left side, and then just keep Tavares at center. And this was something they started looking for at the beginning of the season too, just to kind of see what their options are. So I think they've cast a bit of a wide net in terms of getting somebody capable of playing the second line. Player may end up being a third line guy, but somebody kind of interchangeable. I still think that's where they're at, but obviously, Rosie, like the blue line will be a matter of concern if, I think more so if Tanev is out, long term. Then they adjust and make a bigger splash on D, or try to anyway. Alternatively, if he's back, you still kind of look to make an addition up front and then see if you can find somebody that has playoff experience, capable of playing playoff minutes, if he needs to be slotted in on the back end.
What's your read on Braden Shen?
They like him. I believe he's on their radar. Trickier type of move given the term and the dollars that are tied to it. St. Louis is willing to listen on almost anybody right now. So the Blues have kind of, let things be known that, if you have interest in one of our players, we'll make a move. So whether it's Shen, Kyrou on something bigger, Bushnevich has his extension kicking in July 1. He's out there. I know there's a lot of talk of Binnington for some reason, but he's got a substantial no trade. So we'll see kind of where that ends up going if anybody goes in that direction. But they're willing to listen on pretty much everybody, including Braden Shen. But yeah, he's got a few more years on that contract in that $6 million range. So it's going to be tricky for Toronto to navigate that right now this season, unless there's retention, which I don't know really if that's something St. Louis is interested in. And B, just the acquisition cost for it. If Toronto's going to make a bigger splash, and this would be considered in the bigger splash category, they're going to have to give up one of their more prized young kids. And I think they're willing to do that, but I don't know necessarily if that's something that they're willing to do right now, because I don't know if they have the capability of pulling it off financially with the cap.
Yeah, and that's just the thing. I mean, I think you got to give up something, and you immediately go to some of their prospects they have coming down the barrel. Is that going to be enough, or does it have to be a piece off the roster? I have to think that Matthew Knies is absolutely untouchable. Who else do you think could be packaged in on this deal that could get something like this to over the hill?
Well, you're looking at the younger kids, right? So you're looking at either Fraser Minton, Easton Cowan, one of those guys. If you're making a bigger type splash, you're going to have to include one of those guys in the discussion. The first round pick next year, a lot of teams that are selling bigger pieces are looking at that because of how deep and how good the 2026 draft is projected to be. But barring that, you're looking at, having to give up either a Minton or a Cowan or one of your top young kids in order to make a bigger splash. Now, we know Toronto's been very reluctant to do that in the past. I don't know how much of an appetite they have right now. I know some teams have asked about Minton specifically, but I don't know, like Philadelphia, for example, about a month ago, the Scott Laughton discussion reignited, and that really didn't get going anywhere because of, Fraser Minton being part of the ask. So I think Toronto's willing to go down that road, but you're looking at somebody from a substantial move. Is it a guy like Shen? It's possible, but again, for a deal of that magnitude to go down, the assets are one thing, the cap is the other, and having to figure out how to navigate the cap right now, this season anyway, it can make things pretty difficult.
What the hell's going on with Mikko Rantanen? Like, is there a chance this guy's dealt again? And if that's the case, you think the Leafs can get involved here?
Look, it's a tricky situation because they've made him the offer. 8 years in that 104 range. It's up to him, obviously, look, money's not necessarily the issue, and I do think Carolina came in a little lower than I anticipated right out of the gate. They understand where the number is going to be. It's going to be, in between that $13 to $14 million range on an AAV. Maybe a team goes a little bit nuts and blows their load in the summer come July 1 and gives them more, but obviously we don't know that right now. So, but from Carolina's perspective, it's not the money. This comes down to the player. And with everything going on, the whirlwind, the trade, the on the road, the Four Nations, etc. They just lost to Montreal last night. Like there's a lot going on for him to unpack. So it's going to come down to, and we knew this from the get-go, it's going to be his decision. Now, doesn't necessarily mean he's going to sign by the 7th, and it doesn't mean because of that Carolina won't trade him. But if the response is, I'm going to July 1, thank you for the offer, I'll consider it, you're at the top of my list, but I want to see what my options are, then I think Carolina pivots. Barring that, I think they're more likely to hold on to him. I think others have reported this as well. It's not like Carolina's going out there shopping the guy. Teams have called and said, hey, if you get to a point where you move him, please give us a call. I think Dallas is one of those teams. I think Tampa is another. Vegas certainly gets in on everybody. But you're looking at a $4.625 million player right now. If you want Carolina to eat some of that, or another team, you got to pay extra for that, and then go from there. But this is all, it's all nice. It's sexy to talk about because he's, one of the top guys. But the only way Carolina does it is if they feel he's going to July 1, and that significantly lowers or eliminates their chances of signing him.
I think whatever happens, there's going to be some raised eyebrows, which is kind of exciting. I want to pivot to John Tavares here.
Yep.
Any chance you think they get him done before the deadline? I think they've kind of tilted their hand to that. That's not the case. What do you see happening in the future with John as far as, will he extend? What kind of value is that at? Do you think there's any kind of chance of taking a discount? I've seen some numbers out there that it seemed kind of high to me.
Yeah, well, I mean, looking at where things are at, a lot of people look back at the Joe Pavelski deal that he signed in Dallas, 3 times 7. That's kind of what I've been hearing hovering around Tavares. It could be lower. I'm expecting in that 6 to 7 range. And given where the cap is at and how it's increasing, for a guy who's, let's say he's not going to, hit 80 points over those 3 years, but if he's in the 65 to 75 range, for that type of money, that's going to be kind of going rate. And that might be a little bit on the low end to a certain extent by the end of that deal. I think there's an appetite, obviously, on both sides to get this done. I don't think there's been a rush because I think there's enough comfort there, knowing that this shouldn't be a long, arduous process. You're probably looking at something in the 3-year range, to get him locked in, and because of that, I think Toronto kind of is looking in other directions on how to improve the club and not having to worry about number 91 because it's not necessarily a foregone conclusion, obviously, because it's not pen to paper. But I think there's enough confidence there that he's going to stick around beyond this season.
What about Marner? Any update there?
No, not that I've heard. He obviously, there's no secret that he loves it here. He wants to be here, but at the same time, he wants to be in that market value type of environment. And I wouldn't be surprised if he goes to July 1, but a lot of what he's going to end up earning is not necessarily dependent, but it kind of aligns with what happens with Rantanen. These are going to be the two guys as of now headed for July 1 that are going to run the market. And if Rantanen's getting 14, you can certainly argue that somewhere in the 13 range is market value for Mitch Marner. Is it the 13.25 that Austin's getting? Is it more? Is it closer to 14 if somebody goes nuts for Rantanen and offers him above 14? All of those kind of factor in. But as of now, and this isn't going to be a situation that Colorado ended up going through and moving out Rantanen. I don't think that's part of the discussion at any point. But from a contract extension perspective, it's been relatively quiet. Maybe that's by design. Everybody's keeping a lid on it, but I haven't gotten the sense that they've really engaged in anything super serious.
What's interesting to me, just to tie a bow on this, is you look at the Rantanen situation. I wonder if the Marner camp looks at that and was like, if I go somewhere else, like the grass isn't necessarily greener, where you look at Rantanen in Carolina, there's no Nathan McKinnon around him anymore. Same for Matthews, or excuse me, same for Marner.
Mm-hmm.
You leave, there's no Matthews, there's no Nylander and others. And I wonder if that weighs into his decision long-term here.
It might. I mean, the teams that, if Marner hits the open market, some of the teams that I expect, to pursue him are teams like Chicago, and you've got Bedard, teams like, Utah, and you've got some good pieces there with Keller and so on. I mean, there's going to be a long list of teams that are going to pursue Mitch Marner if he hits the open market. And some teams that have expressed some level of interest in the past, circle back to Vegas, they're all over the place, may have to make significant type of adjustments on their roster in order to accommodate. I don't foresee an environment where, especially if it's his decision, where he's not factoring that stuff in, where he's not going to look at a team and say, here's who I can play with, here's who I can make better, here's who can help my game. I think this makes more sense for me to go options A and B versus B and C and Toronto that's out there. Again, he loves it here. He wants to be here for life, but at the same time, a lot of different outside factors come in, and dollars is a big one.
Dave, excellent stuff. I know you're going to be hosting this show coming up next Tuesday as we inch closer and closer to the trade deadline. Appreciate your time today.
You got it. See you, boys.
Thanks, Dave.
There's Dave Pagnotta, the Fourth Period NHL Network Radio. And that's my fascination. I think the Marner camp looks at Rantanen and is like, man, like it just, again, for all the conversation about how much money this guy's going to get, it's a lot of it's about fit. I mean, you can speak to it having played in this league, right?
Yeah, a lot is about fit. And the thing is, you don't know how a guy's going to fit in an organization with a line mate in a city with a change until it happens. So it's a lot of blind faith with that. And I like what you said with Rantanen. Like, everyone just assumes, oh, he's going to go Rantanen. Like, look at his numbers. And then he goes to Carolina. He's just not the same dude. It's funny how quick it changes. And it would just be absolutely insane for Carolina to give up Natchez and to see how he's doing in Colorado, and then to not get Rantanen locked up and then to lose him to nothing plus the picks and everything. Oh my God, it is an absolute nightmare scenario for their management system. But it's why we watch. It's going to be interesting. And like I said to Dave, I think that whatever happens with that situation, it's going to raise some eyebrows.
Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button at the Leafs Nation 401. Roll Up to Win is back at Tim Hortons, and that means you could win millions of amazing prizes with just a swipe of a thumb. Imagine turning your routine Tim's run into an unforgettable vacation with sell-off vacations, a $1,000 racket and cash prize, or an all-new, all-electric 2025 Volkswagen ID Buzz. You only have until March 23rd. So open up that Tim's app and get rolling. Play Roll Up to Win today. Rules apply. Canada only. No purchase necessary. Visit the Tim's app for details. So here are the listed names. We talked about Tanev a bit earlier on with Dave, obviously, and prior to that with the recap, Leafs-Bruins. Again, seen leaving TD Garden, right arm in a sling. The trade options, right-hand D I'm looking at. David Savard of Montreal, Luke Schenn, we've been talking about for a couple months. Rasmus Ristolainen comes with term. And Seth Jones, I don't think that contract makes sense. He wants too much, but I loved his comments last night. But did you check that out, his post-game? In Chicago, he's like, I'm tired of losing pretty much. I'm tired of losing pretty much. He was done.
Oh, I know. It's an ugly feeling where you don't really feel like you have anything to look forward to. It is interesting. I look at that. I mean, what are you trying? Like, Schenner, to me, yeah, he's the oldest guy there. Right-handed, has the pedigree, has the experience with the cups and whatnot. I think he would kind of take Tanev spots with the block and the shots, being physical, that type of thing. If you look at his plus minus history, he's just a better player. You look at Seth Jones, you look at Ristolainen, they just like there's minus 40s on the recent docket there, which is just like yikes. We're not, you're trying to replace a Tanev player or complement a Tanev player or put a Tanev player with XYZ, one of these other guys, OEL or Morgan Rielly. So I see why Schenner is still on the list. He's 35 years old. I get that he's not 25, but he there's some familiarity there too, right? You know how he fits with these boys. You know what he feels like in Toronto. You know the history of him being comfortable here. So that plays into it too. So yeah, I don't really see why Seth Jones is on the docket there. I just think there's too many question marks. I think there's other guys to go after, but Ristolainen too, you look at him and numbers look good, experience looks good, but I just don't know if he's the right fit for what you're trying to produce here in Toronto.
And I would say in a perfect world, Timmins is my number 7. Myers my number 8. Like you're looking pretty good if that's the case. And assuming again, Chris Tanev's going to be ready for game 1 of the playoffs, to have the luxury of a Luke Schenn, I tend to agree with you. I think Luke Schenn just makes too much sense. By all accounts, he loved playing in Toronto the 2 times. Make it a third time's a charm, as they say. The familiarity. He's played with Rielly, made Rielly a better player. He's made Quinn Hughes a better player. great in the room, chucks them. Like there's just so many boxes I think that check when it comes to Luke Shen in Toronto. Not to mention, like, Berube knows him too from Philadelphia, right?
Yeah, that's true too. He knows
Yeah.
Chief as well, so there's familiarity there too. There's just a lot of reasons why it works. If something crazy happens and they end up pulling off, I'm not sure how they would get both of them. It
That'd be
would have
sick.
It'd have to be a wild deal with a lot of moving parts with a third team involved, I'm sure. But it could be wild. But that would be another reason why it would be pretty exciting is if I mean, their eyes are on both of those players. So that could be a special story as well.
Man, I would make the compilation of a century if they got Braden and Luke, and just the amount of times you were just mocking the fact of teams calling about reuniting the brothers. I'd make like a video package for you.
I'm not saying it could never happen. I'm saying the general managers aren't calling the insiders going, man, I just really want to get these Shen brothers together again. That never happened. That made me laugh out loud.
You think they ever called GMs when Nick Ritchie was on the Leafs? Like, we'll send you Brett. Let's do the Ritchie brothers together in Toronto. Think that happened?
I'm sure that was just as high a priority. Yeah.
Yeah, it was like your whole wife swap convo from our trade deadline special a couple years ago. That was award-winning stuff right there. And as you know, Rosie, the daily face-off trade deadline special is coming your way Friday, March 7th from 11 a.m. to 3:30 p.m. Eastern time, exclusively on the Daily Face-Off YouTube channel. Instant reaction, expert analysis, special guests. Whatever happens, the DFO crew will have you covered on deadline day, March 7th, 11 a.m. Eastern time, Daily Face-Off YouTube channel. It's time for the last call, brought to you by Bet365. Open an account with Bet365 today and bet on a huge range of markets, whatever the moment. It's never ordinary at Bet365. Use code NATION, all in uppercase today. That's NATION, NATION. I'm not crazy about the slate tonight. I'll give you some time to look at it, but there's not much cooking. I might take a back seat in this one, but just looking briefly, New Jersey and Colorado, that is one bet I have already made. I like the over 5.5 in that game.
New Jersey, Colorado. I'm looking at this Jets Senators game. The Jets are on a 10-game heater. The Senators are on a 4-game losing streak. I'm trying to figure out who's starting in net, and Hellebuck is all but confirmed.
Mm-hmm.
And the money line for the Jets is minus 140, and the spread, if you spot them 1.5 goals, is plus 190. Like, I don't get that. Plus 190 for the Winnipeg Jets against the Senators. I mean, I feel like there's a glitch in the matrix here. Something's going on. Do you have any reason why when I first clicked it, I'm like, oh, watch the ridiculous numbers that I'm going to scroll right past here. And it's like minus 140 for the Jets on the money line. What are we talking about here?
We're talking about you being J. Tate Rosehill, Andrew Tate special.
You want to know how hot I was yesterday? I don't usually talk betting, though. Thanks to Zach, I took Pasternak to get 2 goals. Check. Yeah. That was Zacky's. Over 1.5 in the first period, which I said on the show. Nailed that. I took for it to go into overtime. Nailed that. I took Pontus to score a goal. Nailed that. Robertson to score a goal. Nailed that. I took Matthew Nice to score a goal and missed on that one. But, like, are you kidding me? I'm like a beautiful mind over here.
Well, that's great because we're going to Nashville in a couple of weeks, and it sounds like you're buying me about 15 rounds. Is that what's going on?
I bet fairly small, so there's not a whole lot to go around.
No, I do the same.
Nick, I know you'll be hanging off me to buy drinks. I already.
Yeah, that's what I normally do. Just National Leaguers, former National Leaguers. I'm just gonna chill there. Hey, you want to get a bottle tonight?
Yeah, exactly. I'm ready for it. But no, I don't know. I got the Jets tonight, man. I don't know what's going on in Vegas. Maybe they fell asleep at the wheel.
Man, I was talking about that with a buddy yesterday, just like the stragglers, like the Spit and Chicklets crew, like they're beauties, but the amount of people that just latch onto that crew is hilarious to me. But I'm sure it happened a lot in your playing days too, right?
Yeah, it'd be tough. Like Schenner, for example, you'd go to a bar with him and, you know, if you go as a team or whatever, you kind of got your own area that they'll keep people out of, but you go there and it just ends up, he's just pinned in a corner and it's mostly dudes talking to him about like, my dad, like there's blah, blah, blah. And it's like, oh my God, it's kind of painful. So yeah, for those Chicklets boys and stuff, they just have a trail of bees following their honey, which can get a little bit annoying, but that is what it is.
Got to find an occupation where it's the opposite sex, like just in our corner, you know. It's because I'm buddies with Al's brother from Overdrive, and we always go out, and even Jesse Pollock will hit the town with a bit too, and it's just a bunch of dudes that come up to them. Like, what's the fun in that, Rosie?
Well, I think there's ways to find out the other sex, figure out what they want too, and try
You're
to
right.
lean towards that if that's what you're into, Nikki.
Life lessons here with Andrew Tate Jr., Jay Tate
Oh,
Rosehill.
wow.
There you have it. That's going to do it for today's edition, Rosie. Coming up tomorrow, a full trade deadline primer. Your former GM in Toronto, Brian Burke's going to drop by the show.
Nice. Catch up with
Yeah.
Burke. He texted me the other day, actually, out of the blue, which is
Did
neat.
he?
But it'd be good to talk to him. I'm just placing my bet before I forget on that Jets game. I don't know what's going on
You
there.
put Berkey on red or what? Do you respond right away?
Actually, yeah. I was just
Oh, you're kidding me.
I was at my buddy's house. We were making up a big meal and something was on. And then I was like, oh, Berkey texted me. When the hell was that? And I was like, oh, it was like an hour and 20 minutes ago. I was like, shit. But I was hot back to him after that.
He is at every Leafs game. People don't know this. Brian Burke has a press pass to Scotiabank Arena. I've been like 15, 16 times. He is always there.
Yeah.
Loves it. He lives for
loves
the
it,
game.
man. He's a lifer.
Yeah.
I don't think he'll ever retire. He's one of those guys.
Well, we're going to crack it tomorrow, and we're going to talk some trade deadline with Brian Burke. Thank you to Dave Pagnotta, the fourth period, again for dropping by. That'll do it. The Leafs back in action, by the way, on Friday on Broadway. So full dedication to the deadline. Tomorrow, we'll also talk about sort of the news and notes, and maybe we'll have an update on Chris Tanev. But again, you never know with this team. Could just be day-to-day from being day-to-day. So that's Jay Rosehill. Thank you to everybody in the chat at the Leafs Nation 401. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Leafs Morning Take. Wherever you find your podcast, make sure to leave us a 5-star review. And don't forget to visit theleafsnation.com. Thank you again to producer Vic. For Jay Rosehill, I'm Nick Alberga. Take care. Make sure to check out more of our content right here on the Leafs Nation YouTube page. We got long-form interviews, we got clips, we got epic rants by Jay Rosehill. We simply have it all. And don't forget, you can find out much more at theleafsnation.com. Thanks so much for watching.